guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be all about homelessness and how to make a homelessness application with your local authority. I have some notes down here. First of all, I would like to say I'm really sorry for any external noise. I'm really going to just try and get through this video without stopping it again. Literally tried to make it quite a few times. Babies, neighbours, fire engines, people outside. I'm just going to go for it and hopefully it won't be too distracting. So here goes. So homelessness. So I'm going to talk about private renting mostly because that's what happened to me and that's what's happening to a lot of my viewers that are commenting. But you can be homeless for obviously other reasons. So let's say you are 18, you found yourself pregnant, your parents aren't happy about it and they want you to leave your home. That's normally classed as like a family breakdown, a relationship breakdown. So yes, you can approach the council and they most likely will assist you because you are in the priority need group. You're a vulnerable person if you're pregnant or you have a child. However, I would say try and get a letter from your parents to state that you are being made homeless and on what date, because the council is very much about documentation and they like to know the date when you will become homeless, because before that you're just threatened with homelessness. And like if you say, oh, my mum wants me out in a month's time or about a month's time, they want to know like when is it going to be, the 31st or 21st, like when, because like I said, that's very vague, like just in a month's time. And they will pretty much just leave you there until you give them a proper set date of like, I'm homeless today or I'm homeless tomorrow, next week, whatever the date is going to be. Because like I said, especially if it's a relationship breakdown, things change. Your mum might go, oh, you know, I don't want you to leave or whatever. But if it's a definite thing, try and get a letter to say that they're making you homeless and when. Okay, private renting, slightly different. As you may know, if you are private renting and you are handed a section 21 notice. Now if you've been given one of these and it's just, that's all you've been given so far, don't panic. I know it's very... it's stressful when you get that letter. You're like, oh my god, I'm gonna leave, I've only got 2 months. First off, you don't have just 2 months. It can take quite a while. I would say this, even if the eviction is sort of sped up, it's gonna take them probably like 4 to 5 months to actually get the eviction completed, because first you've got the section 21, then you have the notice of possession, and like the section 21 is 8 weeks, right? So the landlord's going to give you a notice saying they intend to take the property back, they would like you to leave, they would like to end your contract, and that's your notice. So the 8 weeks come and they go, they might call you at the end of the 8 weeks and say, hi, have you left the property? Do you plan to leave the property? They kind of, most landlords know the deal when it comes to the council. So if you've panicked, you're like, oh my god, I've been given a section 21, you run to the council, they're going to be like, sit tight. And it does frustrate landlords, unfortunately. Sorry, it's not the tenant's fault, it's the council. I know it must be so frustrating for a landlord to have tenants just sitting there when they want their property back, but you will be told to not leave. If you vacate that property before the whole process goes through, you can be deemed intentionally homeless because you left a property when you could have stayed there. Because just because you've been given a section 21 doesn't mean you need to get out at the end of it, so you need to stay put. So section 21's, let's say 8 weeks, then they're going to ring you, oh, you're going to leave, oh no, I'm going to wait. Then they've got to go to court and file for possession to claim the property back. So they're going to go and do that, and that's got to go to court, then the letter's got to come to you, there's like a whole booklet that you've got to fill out, then you're going to send it back, get a court date. Then after that, you know, the court case is like 1 day, like they go to court or whatever, the judge has to stamp, yep. Then they have to go and get the bail. You see how long this all takes, especially with courts. Courts are not like, unless they're really not busy, which they normally are, it's not going to be like, all right, go to court, oh here you go, here's your eviction, get out. It takes a while, so like I said, don't panic straight away. So whew, that was a bit of a rant. Where was I? So you've been given your section 21. Like I said, the council probably not going to do anything at this point because you are only threatened with homelessness. You are not. My advice to you is to keep paying your rent. I'll say it again, keep paying your rent. Don't think, oh well, they want me out, I'm just going to stop paying my rent now. As long as you're in that property up until the day you are evicted, keep paying your rent, because this can really hinder your homelessness application if you are when they're going through their investigations, which I'll get to later. So please keep paying your rent. I sound winded because I'm trying to talk really fast. If you are being evicted for rent arrears or anything else, normally rent arrears, this is a tricky one because you can be deemed intentionally homeless for rent arrears. I would say your best shot at getting the council to help you is to try and make some form of payment. So let's say you're like, oh my god, I really can't, like maybe this is a common scenario. You were getting housing benefit and it was covering all of your rent or most of it. You was working, then you lost your job and found out that it's not going to cover all of it anymore, or maybe just the government changed the laws and now all of a sudden your rent isn't fully covered by your benefits that you was receiving. Try and pay something, even if it's like £8 a month or something. Try and pay something so it shows that you were willing to try and work with the landlord. You're willing to try and make an arrangement with the landlord. Say, look, this is all I can pay at the moment. I know it's not much, but try and pay something so that they can see that, well, this person was struggling and that's why they didn't pay their rent. Don't have it just be like, well, I had to pay my credit card bill and I had to pay my kids' school uniform and I was trying to juggle things around, because those other bills are non-priority. Your rent, your council housing bills are first. So try not to have any housing related debt, whether it be council tax, water bills, what else, well, electricity and things like that. They're going to look at it, but not in the same way that they're going to look at council tax and rent. So yes, that's my advice. Keep paying those things, and if you're struggling, make sure that those bills are the ones you're paying first. So like I said, if you've got other bills, they're going to have to come last. They're not going to be worried about the fact that, oh well, the bailiff's going to come for this bill that I haven't paid for 6 months. They're going to be like, well, you're going to be homeless, so you need to pay your rent. So yes. So let's say you've got your section 21, that's passed. Sorry, there was a lot of noise, I had to take a break. So what was I saying? Yes, councils, they're not really being malicious when they're trying to delay or prevent the evictions. It does seem a bit frustrating for the tenant to have to be sitting in the property, but they're hoping that somebody will help you out with a deposit. You'll find a guarantor, you'll just find your own accommodation elsewhere. But it's really, really tricky to do that when you're like you have a young family, you don't have a lot of available disposable income, and just the sustainability of private rentals. You know, most contracts are for 1 year, and then after that year lapses, they just go from month to month. But if at the end of that year the landlord is like, well, kind of want my property back now, you have to move. And that can happen to, like, you could go from one property to the next property to the next property, and you're just moving around with your kids every year. It might be every 3 years, it might be like 1 year and then you say 3 years at one place, and then you say 1 year at another place, and you're and it's too much moving. I wish the government would understand why people are latching onto, you know, council properties so much. It's not just because of the rent. Yes, the rents are ridiculous, because when you move in it might be one price and then it becomes extortionate, and people say, well, you should just move somewhere more affordable. But everywhere is becoming unaffordable. It's like, where do you want people to go? Where are we going to live? So yeah, but one thing I will say, just because you go down this route of homelessness, one thing I should have probably said at the beginning, doesn't guarantee the fact that you are going to get a council house. I think some people make homelessness applications in the hopes that, oh, I'm going to get a council house at the end of it if they find that they have a duty to house me. Doesn't work like that. I'll get to that. So we've covered, just make sure I've talked about spaces. So let's say next you've got your possession order. It is a big yellow form. I would show you, but I don't think I can. It's got too much information on it. Yeah, so they're going to send you this yellow form, and it's just a claim of possession. It's going to have the claimant, which is going to be your landlord. Defendant is you, and then there is a bit at the back. It's a whole bunch of stuff where you can fill in information. It's going to talk about postponing your eviction, and you'll put your reasons why. The council will probably want you to put a reason in there, but honestly the courts will just ignore it, especially if the landlord has a genuine claim. If he just wants his property back, he's not being like malicious or anything, he's just like, I just want my flat back. One thing to note that nobody told me about was the court fees. So mine was £355. I had to pay this. When I first got this court document, it said that the court costs would be covered by the landlord. I did query this because of that, but when I got the actual the eviction and everything, it said the cost to be paid by the defendant, £355. I was like, what? And then also they only give you, I think it was like 14 days to pay it. Now, so now you know this, please be aware of that, because you will need to pay that within that 14 days or risk getting a CCJ, which again, I hope it won't, but it probably could hinder your claim. So yeah, being evicted isn't cheap. So you've got your eviction, your possession order, that will take a while. They'll send it off to the court. You can attend the court hearing. I didn't, I was told. So let me backtrack a little bit and tell you my story. So when I got my section 21, I think when it was about to run out, I went to the council. They sent me to a department called Housing Solutions, I believe it was called. I met this guy like one day. He was great, but he was never to be seen again. I saw him one day, we went through the section 21. He was trying to claim that it was invalid and he was going to write to the landlord and hopefully get my eviction delayed and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I just want it to be over. So he did that. The landlord was like, nope, pretty sure it's good, because my landlord, he's got quite, well, he had, I'm sorry, my landlord, my landlord has quite a few properties. He has his own legal team and all that stuff, so I'm sure they already ran through it before he sent it out. He knew it was legit. When I finally got the possession order from the court, they said, well, it's legit or whatever. The guy from the council, that Housing Solutions place, said to me, don't worry, when you get this, give us a ring and I'll help you fill out the form. You don't need to go. He told me all the stuff already. You don't need to go to court and all that stuff. When I got that form, could I get hold of this guy? I rang him, ring, emailing him, everything. Oh my God, I think the only thing I didn't do was go to his house. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to do it wrong, and I don't want the council to turn around and say, oh, you should have came and sought help sooner. But I did, and I'll get to that a bit later, but when you go to the council to make your case, you have to fill out a form and all that kind of stuff. And I put his name, I remembered everything. I was like, yeah, I went to see this guy, and then I never saw him. He vanished into Finland. I don't know if he left or what. But yeah, so I ended up having to fill it out myself. I didn't attend the court hearing. You can, but like I said, there's not really much point. It's one of those quick, the judge looks over it, yeah, granted, next, and that's it. So it's just pointless going. So I didn't go to the court hearing. I got a letter in the post to say that he had been granted with possession, and the next letter to come would be the eviction notice. And then one day I came home and it was like slipped through my door. I don't think it came in the Royal Mail. I'm sure I got two actually. It was the same thing, but one was obviously delivered by the landlord or whatever, and then the next one was just from the post, just to make sure that I got it. I have it here, I think. I still got all these things. You must keep all your documents, guys. That was the one where you're like, oh my goodness. And again, it wasn't no, I don't think I've got it here, but the eviction notice, when I got it, it was like for maybe like a month's time. It was like, okay, they got the order of possession, then it was for like another month. So that was good because I had time to arrange, what am I going to do with all my stuff? Now your stuff, I would say when you get your section 21, start thinking about really what you want to keep, because you may not be able to keep all of it. So now you've got your section 21, not your section 21, your possession order, and you've been to the council, they might start looking at where they're going to put you. Like once you, because they know that that date is coming. They know the eviction date is coming. It's inevitable. It can't be stopped now because it's already been granted. They're going to think, right, maybe you're a family or whatever. They're going to want to put you into temporary accommodation. That's ideally a flat. But you might not get that. On the day, you might get there and they have nothing. It's just bed and breakfast, or they've only got hostels, like in my case what they had. Then you're not gonna, if you've got a house like my old house, like this is my temporary one, but if you get a flat great, you're lucky, you're going to have somewhere to store your stuff. But if you don't, where are you going to put your sofa, your fridge, the washing machine? Like, it's a lot of stuff. I looked into those storage places. Oh my god, they're expensive. Like, no. I had to clear out my old bedroom at my mum's house and beg her. I was like, look, my mum's a hoarder, she's got so much stuff, and I was like, I'm putting this here, I'm putting at least the kids' beds, because a lot of it I sold, on some of it was on its last leg. So I just knew, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to replace my fridge because I know it's dying anyway, and there's no point me buying a new one because I don't know where I'm going to put it. And on the day of eviction, your flat needs to be cleared, because again, you don't want the landlord to charge you for storing your items or having to get rid of it, because they can end up saying, oh well, we had to clear out all your junk, so here's a bill. So you want to avoid that. Try and get rid of as much stuff as, like, all the stuff that you don't really need and you know that you don't need to take with you, and beg a friend. This is the time to find out who your real friends are, not tell them if they've got a shed, a spare bedroom. You know, like I said, I only kept essentials like my children's beds. What else did I keep? My washing machine, clothes, things like that. Didn't keep all the big bulk items. I sold my chair, sofas and stuff on Gumtree to some students. That part is rough because it's a lot. Like, you know, 6 years of you're living your life, your livelihood is in there, and then it's just gone because you don't know where you're going to go on the day. So you've gone through all that. You've it's D-Day, it's eviction day. It's the day. You can wait for the bailiffs, you don't have to. I knew I had to be at the council by a certain time. I waited until like a reasonable amount of time, and then when I was like, well, I really have to go now, I just left. I believe I left the keys. I leave them in the flat. I think I did, because normally you hand them to the bailiff. Like, they're not nasty, they're not coming around like in, you know, that show Can't Pay Will Take It Away. Rarely does it happen like that. But I mean, what you see in that show, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a show in the UK, Can't Pay Will Take It Away, and it's all about bailiffs turning up to get their money and all this, and it's very like, yeah, we've come to take all your goods and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to the evictions, normally the High Court evictions, the tenant is aware that the eviction, obviously, if you, I've just listed all the process that you have to go through. Section 21, possession order. And with High Court, they still have to do that. It's just an accelerated process. So where I said like my eviction took like a month or whatever, I got my possession order, and then I got a letter saying, oh, the eviction date is like 1 month or something like that from now. The High Court one is just sooner, but they are aware that they get a letter to say you're going to be evicted, and it's like, you know, oh wow, it's like a week, or it's, oh my god, it's tomorrow or whatever. They are aware. It's not like they just show up and nobody knows what's going on, because in the program it does look like everyone's in their pajamas, they open the door and there's a bailiff like, oh, you got to get out now. They're like, what? Yeah, they're normally aware. So just wanted to point that out because it's not normally like that. So yes, it's the day of the eviction. It's normally quite calm. If this can be like the letting agent or the landlord that show up with the bailiffs, you hand them the keys. Oh, I'm off to the council. They'll give you the letter, or they'll make sure that you've got their letter, because that's a letter you need to give to the council on the day to say, yes, you are now legally homeless. Go to the council. Children, pregnant, priority needs, etc. Let's see, priority needs are pregnant, families with children under 16 or up to 19 if they are still dependent. So I'm guessing that's if you're still in receipt of like child benefit for that child, maybe they're at college or something. Care leavers between the ages of 18 and 20, and domestic violence victims. Obviously that one's a bit different. Domestic violence victims normally don't have like a letter or anything, they just show up. I believe they might have a police report, I'm not sure what the criteria is for that. But yeah, so you're at the council, you've got your letter, they're going to give you some forms to fill out. Make sure you come with all your documents ready. You can normally ask housing options, because obviously if you've been going through this process of eviction, normally by the possession order you've made some contact with housing options or the council, and they will tell you what you need to bring in order to make a homelessness application. Normally everyone's birth certificates or passports for everyone that lives in your household, proof of like where you live, so housing benefit, utility bills. You will need bank statements, work payslips, proof of benefits if you're in receipt of any of those things. All those things, they're going to photocopy them, and then they're going to go and wait and do their assessments. Once they know that you are legally homeless, once they've got that eviction notice, they know you're legally homeless, and they're going to have to house you on the day anyway. They're going to have to put you in temporary accommodation or emergency accommodation. So that will happen most of the time. Well, yeah, that will happen on the day of eviction. Later on it might change, but that will happen on the day of eviction. If you don't have all your documents ready, like available on the day, yes, they will house you for the day, and then you obviously have to go away and find your, oh, I've only got one bank statement, and they're like, oh, we need more, so you'll just come back and bring it at a later date. They'll photocopy them, you'll fill out a whole bunch of forms, and then they will start looking for temporary accommodation. This is why, this one's tricky. This is why you should make contact normally around the possession order, so they know you're coming, because they'll try, if possible, to try and have something available, suitable-ish for you. So like me, it's me, myself and 2 children. So ideally, like this one would have been ideal, a flat. But this was not available when I was homeless on the day. Well, on the day I was in the council from, like I said, I waited for the bailiffs to show up. They didn't show up, and I think it was just before 9 o'clock. I wasn't that far away from the council. Just before 9, I was like, I've got to head out because I don't want to be queuing up forever. I don't want them to tell me, sorry, you know, you're not in the, you didn't come in time, your ticket number's too long, whatever. I was just like, I have to be seen today because today is the day. So my hair is getting snagged on my nails. So I left. I got there at 9. I left. When I left, it was probably like 8 o'clock in the evening. I had been, oh, my butt was numb. I've been sitting there for hours. I did get a break for lunch because they had to go to lunch. They were like, oh, go. And then I think I dropped my kids at my mum's or my sister's, because I was like, I can't have them here all day. This is exhausting, just sitting here. And I had to go up and bring a paperwork and sit down again, go up and fill out this, go and sit down. Because you go to different people. You go to the reception desk. Well, my council, you go to the reception desk, then you go and see somebody that checks over the first set of forms, then you go and see someone that checks over the second. Oh, and when you finally get to see like the housing officer that's going to go through all your stuff and actually no, she doesn't even give you the temporary accommodation. She does all that, and she says, yes, we're going to assist you today, da, 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 da. And then you go and see another guy that does temporary accommodation, and another person that does. It's a long day, so be prepared for that day. It's really, really long, stressful. If you've got kids, I would suggest trying to send them somewhere for the day, because it's really, really long. So they, like I said, I went up, where was I? So like I said, I've been there for quite some time. The temporary accommodation team, once you finally get to that part, they will try and find you accommodation in your area if possible. Doesn't always happen. With me, they tried to put me miles away, and like I said, it was already 7-8 o'clock in the evening. I was like, where on earth is this place? It was a private flat, I think, but it was a 1-bedroom, and it was literally miles. The man said, he said it's so blasé, like it was nothing. Oh yeah, it's only two trains and like a bus. And I was like, how am I supposed to get my kids to school? How am I supposed to get to work and college? And I was at college at the time. I was like, how am I supposed to do all these things? Like, I don't know where I'm going. It's the middle of the night. I really don't want to be walking around with Google going where. And then he said 2 trains and a bus, I think. But it would have been actually another bus, because I would have to get the bus to the train. I was like, no. Have you got anything closer? And all the things they had were gone. They only had, like they determined what is suitable. They only had a hostel. And they said they didn't have the keys, so I had to come back the next day. And the guy was like, please don't sleep in the park. And I was like, I'm not, I don't know where this place is. It's so far away. I don't want to go out really, really far. So yes, they can put you out of the borough, but they try not to, but they can. And they was going to. And that's how I ended up in a hostel, because they just didn't have anything else in the borough. That was all they had, was the hostels. And hostels can be a bit hit and miss. Some of them are okay. I know people that have been on them. They were like, yeah, it was alright. It wasn't like the best, but it wasn't bad. My experience wasn't great, because one, the room was really, really tiny, which I don't think that bothered me as much as the neighbours. Very uncivilized people. It was just awful. And the building was very old and in disrepair. It should not have been used anymore. I think it was like worse than a prison. There was floods all the time. There was mice running all over the place. It was, you'd come in and you'd walk on the ground, and it would just, when it's been raining, it was just so flooded. It was ridiculous. The toilets, I TMI, but I feel like this gave me bowel issues, because you would walk the building looking for an available toilet because they were always being clogged or broken, and it was just, no, never again. I couldn't do that again. It was just awful. I couldn't put my children through. My kids actually were very good. They're very resilient. I think it's more the adults that are like, oh my god, this is awful. And yeah, the neighbours. First set of neighbours were okay. The others were just horrendous. No. Wouldn't want to go for that experience again. So, not to scare you, but I don't want to dress it up like, yeah, it's okay, it's amazing, you just go in here and you stay there for a little bit, and then, no, my experience of hostel life was not the best. Yeah, by the end I was ready to get out. I mean, I feel like I served my time. I was like, oh my god, please get me out of here. Ugh. Yes, and then they found us this place. So sometimes as well, yeah, they will do that. They will temporarily put you maybe in a hotel or in a bed and breakfast that's in, like, maybe you live in London and they put you in Brighton or Margate or wherever. They can do that, and they do that to people, but hopefully it's only short term. If it's a bed and breakfast, I believe they're only actually allowed to do that for 6 weeks, but things don't always run, especially with the council, according to plans and times, because I said this before, they can't give you what they don't have. So like with my situation, you know, when I first went to the, you know, the council, they couldn't give me this flat because it wasn't available. I had to wait almost 2 years for them to move me again. So yeah, not that bed and breakfast should be 2 years, but it could be longer than, let's say, 6 weeks is all I'm saying. Could be like 6 months. Yeah, if you do find yourself actually in a situation like that where you know that something is going on longer than it should be, the best thing I would say, this is one of the things I did, was write to your local MP. So yes, if you have been dropped in a different borough and you're in like a hostel in another borough, or like I said, a hotel or something, you've been living that way for months, you know, like I said, I did say they can't give you what they don't have, but it is by law not acceptable. Like 6 weeks, if it goes on for 8 weeks, I would say, okay, it's okay, you know, they're trying their best. But when it goes on for months and months and months, and you're living in a tiny room with no cooking facilities, and you know, you've got kids of school age, you can't make dinner, and you can't, it's ridiculous trying to live in a hotel for that long, or for long periods of time. So then I would say get onto your MP, and they will get onto the council about why you're still sitting, because you will, obviously most of the time you've already tried to contact the council and say, hey, I've been here, have you guys forgotten about me? But they're just gonna fob you off in a nice way, like, oh sorry, we are looking, we're still investigating, blah blah blah. Yeah, so contact your local MP or anyone, or even Shelter is a good one. Shelter.com, I think it's shelter.org.co.uk or something like that. Shelter, you know that, you probably know who they are. Contact Shelter.org UK. They help for homeless families. I know some councils have like a little department in the council where it's actually shelter employees that work then can assist you. So if something is taking longer than it should, sometimes the best thing to do is get someone else to advocate for you. So like I said, Shelter, or maybe there's a housing charity in your area, because every area's got different ones, so I can't really quote one because they might not exist in your area. But yeah, your MP, local MP is a really good one to get onto if things are taking longer than needed. Right, so hopefully I haven't waffled on too long and lost you, but we've still got some things to cover. So you've gone through all the notices, so it's like 3 notices. So your section 21, order of possession, eviction, you approach the council, they put you in temporary accommodation or emergency accommodation. Now what they're going to do is assess you, and they're going to go through 5 points. From what I remember, they go through them one at a time. They won't skip one. So if you fail like the first point, they're not going to go through the others. This is how they used to do it. I don't know if they're still doing it like that, but yes. So you have to pass these tests in order for them to say that they have a duty to house you, and that's very important. They need to owe you a duty in order to assist you with housing. Oh, actually, before I get into that, when you make your homelessness application, they do make, what do they call it? Personal housing plan. When you make your homelessness application, I said this before, private renting is going to come up a lot. Even when you've if you get through all these 5 tests, private renting is going to come up again. So they're going to give you this personal housing plan, and it will be like things you can do to help yourself to be housed. With mine, they gave me this leaflet that was like, okay, if you find private accommodation, the council has this sort of incentive program where they can offer the landlord this much. But it was a bit of a palaver, and I remember being in the council one day, I can't remember why, I was just waiting for something else, and there was a guy and he was arguing with this housing officer. It was a young guy, and he'd obviously done this, and he'd found a property and secured it, but they took so long that he lost out on the property. So he was like, no, I set it up and you guys were, and the woman, she was kind of rude actually, because she was like, oh, you're shouting at me, I'm not gonna talk about this anymore, and she just got up and left. But I was like, I can see his point and his frustration, because you give us this housing plan, he does all that, he finds a landlord that accepts it, because it's quite hard. You have to go, right, you go to a property, go to the viewing or whatever, you're like, oh, this is a nice property. Then you have to tell them, well, so I want to take this property, but my housing officer is going to call you and offer you payment, and then it's like, what? Then now they've got to deal with a third party. A lot of people don't want to deal with all that. They're just like, I just can't be bothered. What is all this? You know, you've got to give, it's just a lot of headache. So he finally got someone to do that, and they kind of cocked it up, for want of a better word. So yes, that private housing thing is going to come up a lot. I just wanted to say that. So anyway, the 5 tests. So the first one is, are you legally homeless? So like I said, if you've got that proof, that eviction notice from the bailiffs, from the court, that's already, you're legally homeless. If it's from your parents and stuff, they're just going to probably call them or check or go around there to make sure you're not living there. Like I said, a lot of the times they do home visits. If you're claiming to live somewhere, they just want to verify that that is the truth. So that's test 1, pretty easy. Test 2 is, do you meet immigration conditions? So are you a British or Irish citizen? Do you have settled status from the EU settlement scheme? Indefinite leave to remain, or refugee status, or humanitarian protection? So yes, if you're a British citizen, an EU citizen, and you ticked all the boxes, that's fine. 3, are you in a priority need group? So priority need groups, again, we went through this last time, it's pretty much the same as before. Families with children that are under 16 or under 19 if they're still dependent on you. Pregnant lady, homeless because of domestic violence, a care leaver aged 18 to 20, are you made homeless due to flood, fire or other disasters? So that's 3. 4 is, this is a tricky one. This is the one that normally people stumble on. 4, are you intentionally homeless? So if you're not intentionally homeless, obviously you pass the test. You can fail the test by, it says, you were evicted due to antisocial or criminal behavior. You didn't pay the rent or mortgage when it was affordable for you to do so. You left early. Remember I said about leaving at section 21, that's a no-no. You left early or gave up your home when you could have stayed. So yes, that's why I say it's very important to stay put. If they tell you to stay put, only leave if you've got something like in writing, but the council are like, yep, you've got to leave, da 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 da. 5 is local connection. You live or work in the area, have close family in the area, need specialist healthcare in the area. So those are the 5 tests, and then once you have passed all of those, dun, da, 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 you should get a letter in writing from the council informing you whether they have a duty to house you. I believe it's called a section, an S184 letter, something like that. I think I've got one here somewhere. And that letter will state if they have a duty to house you, and if they don't, why they don't. So like I said, if it's going to say that, you know, like cases, for example, I think, did I talk about this last time? I can't remember. Maybe I did, I'll just brush over it again. Lady with 2 children, moved to Wales, had a property, moved back to London to be closer to family, but her mum was living in a temporary accommodation. Her mum was living in a housing association that was only meant for 1 person. Housing associations can be quite strict with numbers of how many people can live there. So let's say you moved in with you and a partner, and then you had a baby, they might want you to move because they say, oh, it's only meant for 2 people. They're a bit weird like that. So this girl and her 2 kids moved into her mum's property, and they said no, the property was only for her mum. So she made a homelessness application with the council, who looked at, you know, well, she said, well, I'm being evicted, but it's not my fault because the housing association is saying I can't live there. But then what they did is looked at her last property where she was living. She was living in Wales. Why did you leave Wales? You gave it up freely. There's no reason that you had to leave. Could have stayed there. Yes, we appreciate that you wanted to be closer to your mum, but that's now made you homeless. And they found her intentionally homeless. In the end, it was a documentary I was watching, and in the end she ends up finding a property, but she did a lot of couch surfing, and she had a young baby. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, people seem to think that if you've got kids, the council's just going to help you, they have to help you. They don't, and they won't. What they will do in that situation, if she was like, well, you have to help me or I'm going to be on the street, they'll be like, okay, here's the number for Child Protective Services. They will house your children, but not you. You have to make your own arrangements. When they say they will house your children, meaning they will put them in foster care until you can sort yourself out. That's what they mean. So nobody wants to go down that road. Most people are like, oh, okay, once they hear that, no. In some circumstances, the housing, Child Protective Services can be useful, but for most time, they're pretty scary. Yeah, so try not to be intentionally homeless. Now, when you get this letter, sorry, I can't find mine, it will tell you the types of housing that they will help you to find. So it will talk about council housing. It will tell you what band you're going to be in if you're going to bid. So mine, I believe, I remember it pretty much. It says that I can bid for properties and like the sizes of the properties, so 1 and 2 bedroom flats. I'm in whatever band, and how the bidding system works. It also talks about the fact that they can just offer you, which is called a direct offer. They can send a letter to your house and say, hey, we have a house, it's 2 bedrooms, it's here, go live there, and that's it. You don't get to see it, you don't get to bid for it, you don't know anything about it. It could be amazing, you might be like, oh my god, this is not what I would have chosen. You don't get a choice. With my council, you get 1 offer only. The second option is housing associations. They can be charitable organizations or private organizations. They run very similar to the council. Some of them that you might know, I think L&Q, Peabody Trust, they're all housing associations. The rents are slightly cheaper. They're slightly more than council houses, but obviously cheaper than standard market rent. Yeah, and you don't have to move and all that kind of stuff. If you want to stay there, you can stay there, as long as you know, stay within the terms of your tenancy agreement. And like I said, they can be a bit stricter with their rules. They might be like, oh, it's only made for 3 people, and then you're gonna have a baby, or you move in your partner and they're like, oh no, you can't live here anymore. So you need to watch out for that. The third one, this didn't used to be a thing, but the council does say that they can house you in private accommodation. So like I said, all the way through it comes up. So it's no guarantee that you're going to get a council house just because you've been accepted as having a duty. So yes, it says they can, as long as it is affordable for you, the tenancy is at least 1 year. Like I said, that is not long enough. Is 1 year. Yeah, they can, if they find a landlord and they find a tenancy, they can be like, right, we found your accommodation. You open up your letter, you're like, oh, what is it? And it's that. So yeah. Ooh, I hope it wasn't too waffly. I hope it helped the video. Sorry, I did have to pause a few times because of lots of noise. So if you see a lot of cuts, that's the reason. If you have any questions, if you have a lot of questions, I might make a separate video answering those questions. I think that is everything I have covered. Yeah, so see you next time, guys.